I never thought the vacation I had planned for 8 months would become a family battlefield. My name is Ella. I am 28 years old, and I work as a marketing coordinator. After getting my promotion this spring, I decided to celebrate with my first solo trip to Sedona, Arizona. I had saved $2,000, booked the Four Seasons Resort Scottsdale, and planned every detail from spa treatments to hiking trails. But my golden sister Madison and her 2 kids needed a getaway, and somehow my peaceful retreat became their family vacation. But this time, I had something they did not know about. Before we dive into this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have ever felt like the family scapegoat. Trust me, you are going to want to hear how this unfolds, because sometimes the quiet ones have the loudest surprises. Growing up in our family meant understanding one unspoken rule: Madison comes first, and Ella adapts. Madison is 31 years old, works in real estate, and recently went through a messy divorce that left her with 2 children, Tyler, who is 8, and Sophie, who is 6. Our parents, Frank and Barbara, have always treated Madison like their precious firstborn, who could do no wrong, while I learned early that being understanding was my primary family role. My dad, Frank, is 58 and runs his own insurance company. He approaches every family situation like a business problem that needs practical solutions. My mom, Barbara, is 55 and works part-time at the local library. She has mastered the art of gentle manipulation disguised as maternal concern. Together, they created a family dynamic where Madison's needs automatically trump everyone else's, especially mine. This pattern started when we were kids. Madison got the bigger bedroom because she was older. I gave up my spot on the soccer team because Madison needed rides to her dance classes. When Madison wanted to go to expensive private college, I was encouraged to choose state school because it was more practical and left more money for the family. When Madison's wedding cost exceeded their budget, my college fund mysteriously became available to help with flower arrangements and the reception venue. The vacation to Sedona represented something deeper than just time off. After 5 years of climbing the corporate ladder, working overtime, and saving every penny from freelance projects, I finally had enough money and vacation days for something special. I spent hours researching the perfect resort, reading reviews, comparing spa packages, and mapping out hiking trails in the Red Rocks. This trip was my reward for landing the promotion, my celebration of independence, and my chance to reconnect with myself away from family obligations and work stress. I booked the Four Seasons Resort Scottsdale in January for a September departure. The resort offered everything I craved: adult-oriented atmosphere, world-class, spa proximity to Sedona's spiritual energy, and hiking access to Cathedral Rock. I even planned specific activities like sunrise yoga, afternoon massages, and evening meditation sessions under the desert stars. For the first time in my adult life, I was doing something purely for myself without considering anyone else's needs or opinions. Then Madison's crisis exploded into our carefully balanced family ecosystem. Her ex-husband, Derek, who had been mostly absent since their divorce 2 years ago, suddenly decided he wanted full custody of Tyler and Sophie. Madison received the legal papers on a Thursday evening and immediately called our parents in hysterics. By Friday morning, we were all summoned to an emergency family meeting at my parents' house. Barbara answered the door with red-rimmed eyes and immediately pulled me into a hug. Madison was sitting on the living room couch, still in her pajamas at 2 p.m, while Tyler and Sophie played quietly in the corner with unusual, subdued energy. Frank paced the room like he was preparing for a business presentation, his jaw set in that determined way that meant he had already decided how this situation would be resolved. Madison's explanation came between sobs and tissues. Derek had gotten remarried to a woman named Crystal, who apparently wanted to play stepmother to his children. They lived in a bigger house in a better school district, and Derek's lawyer argued that he could provide more stability than Madison's single-parent household. The legal battle would take months, cost thousands of dollars, and drag the kids through psychological evaluations and custody hearings. As Madison cried about losing her children, I watched my parents' faces shift into their familiar protective mode. Barbara sat beside Madison, stroking her hair and making soothing sounds. Frank stopped pacing and focused his attention on finding immediate solutions. That was when my mom suggested that maybe Madison and the kids needed to get away somewhere peaceful to process everything and bond as a family unit before the legal proceedings intensified. The suggestion hung in the air for exactly 3 seconds before all eyes turned to me. I felt my stomach drop as I realized where this conversation was heading. Frank cleared his throat and mentioned that my Sedona vacation might be exactly what Madison needed. Barbara nodded enthusiastically, explaining how resort activities would be perfect for helping the kids feel secure and loved. Madison looked at me with hope flickering in her tear-stained eyes. The pressure was subtle, but relentless. Nobody directly asked me to give up my vacation. Instead, they talked around me as if I was not in the room, discussing how beneficial a family getaway would be for Madison's emotional state and the children's well-being. Frank pointed out that I was single and could take vacations any time, while Madison needed support during this crisis. Barbara mentioned how the resort probably had family activities that would be wasted on a solo traveler anyway. Madison finally spoke directly to me, her voice breaking, as she described how Tyler had been acting out at school, and Sophie had started wetting the bed again since receiving the custody papers. She said she needed somewhere peaceful where she could focus on being a good mother and preparing for the legal battle. The tears started flowing again as she whispered that she just wanted her children to feel safe and loved during this horrible time. I felt the familiar weight of family guilt settling on my shoulders. How could I prioritize my own vacation when my sister was facing the possibility of losing her children? How could I justify spa treatments and hiking adventures when Tyler and Sophie needed stability and reassurance? The logical part of my brain understood their reasoning, but something deeper in my chest burned with resentment at being expected to sacrifice my happiness once again for Madison's crisis. The family pressure campaign intensified over the following 2 weeks. Barbara called me every morning with updates about Madison's deteriorating emotional state. According to my mother, Madison was barely sleeping, crying constantly, and struggling to maintain normal routines with the children. Frank called me every evening with practical arguments about why sharing my vacation made perfect sense. He emphasized that the resort had family activities, pools for kids, and room service that would make everything easier for a stressed single mother. Madison herself became increasingly desperate in her appeals. She started sending me text messages throughout the day with updates about the kids, asking when they would see Aunt Ella's vacation pictures. She shared photos of Tyler's latest temper tantrum and Sophie clinging to her stuffed animal, both children clearly affected by the family stress. She called me crying after particularly difficult conversations with lawyers, wondering aloud how she could afford both legal fees and a healing vacation for her family. The extended family joined the pressure campaign within days. My cousin Sarah called to mention how generous I had always been, and how this situation seemed like a perfect opportunity to show family support. My Aunt Linda stopped by my apartment unexpectedly to discuss how important it was for families to stick together during crisis situations. Even my grandmother weighed in during our weekly phone call, mentioning how proud she was that I had raised two such caring daughters, one of whom always stepped up when the other needed help. The guilt tactics became increasingly sophisticated. Barbara started sharing memories of my childhood generosity, reminding me how I used to give Madison my Halloween candy and let her play with my favorite toys. Frank began discussing family values and how we had raised our daughters to understand that family comes before personal desires. Madison sent me pictures of the legal documents highlighting the sections about providing stable, loving environments for children during custody proceedings. The group text messages started arriving multiple times per day. Barbara would share updates about Madison having anxiety attacks in grocery stores. Frank would forward articles about the psychological impact of custody battles on children. Madison would send photos of Tyler's drawings that depicted their family as sad stick figures with speech bubbles, asking when they would be happy again. The final manipulation came when Madison called me on a Sunday evening with both children audibly crying in the background. Tyler had apparently asked his mother why Aunt Ella did not want to help them feel better, and Sophie had drawn a picture of our whole family on vacation together. Madison's voice cracked as she described explaining to her children that sometimes adults have different priorities and that we should not expect others to sacrifice for our happiness. As I listened to those innocent voices asking about vacation with Aunt Ella, something inside me snapped, not with anger, but with crystal clear determination. I realized this pattern would never end unless I took drastic action. Madison would always have crises. My parents would always prioritize her needs, and I would always be expected to smile and sacrifice my happiness for family harmony. This cycle had to stop, but it needed to stop in a way that taught everyone involved a lesson they would never forget. I agreed to give up the vacation, but secretly began forming an elaborate backup plan. While outwardly expressing concern for Madison and the children, I started researching alternative destinations with similar costs and experiences. I remembered my college friend Jessica had moved to Portland and frequently posted pictures from Oregon wine country on social media. I reached out to her with a casual message about potentially visiting without revealing the full situation with my family. Jessica responded enthusiastically, sharing information about bed and breakfast establishments in the Willamette Valley local wineries, hiking trails, and spa services available throughout the region. She offered to take time off work to show me around and suggested we could recreate our college adventures with wine tastings and long conversations about life and goals. The more she described the area, the more excited I became about this secret alternative to my original Sedona plans. I researched Ashford Manor Bed and Breakfast, a beautiful property surrounded by vineyards and mountains. The photos showed elegant rooms with private balconies, gourmet breakfast services, and access to world-class wineries within walking distance. The cost was comparable to my Sedona resort, but the experience promised adult-oriented sophistication and peaceful luxury that would actually surpass my original vacation dreams. The deception strategy required careful planning and flawless execution. I needed to convince my family that I was graciously accepting their request while secretly preparing my own getaway. This meant maintaining my disappointed but understanding facade while booking flights, accommodations, and activities for my real vacation. I created detailed lists of what to say, how to react, and when to reveal my true plans for maximum impact. The fake compliance phase required Academy Award-level acting skills. I called Madison first, using a carefully rehearsed tone of resigned acceptance. I explained that after thinking about her situation and the children's needs, I realized family should come before personal desires. I offered to transfer my resort reservation to her name and provide her with all my research about activities, restaurants, and local attractions that would be perfect for her family. Madison cried with relief and gratitude, thanking me repeatedly for being such an amazing sister and aunt. She promised to take hundreds of pictures to share with me and suggested that maybe next year we could plan a vacation together. Barbara called within an hour of my conversation with Madison, praising my maturity and selflessness. She mentioned how proud she was to have raised such a compassionate daughter and how this sacrifice would bring our family closer together. Frank's reaction was typically practical and approving. He called me that evening to express his satisfaction with my decision, explaining how this demonstrated the family values he had worked to instill in both his daughters. He mentioned that this experience would be good for Madison's custody case, showing Derek's lawyers that she had strong family support and could provide enriching experiences for the children. The family celebration felt both satisfying and nauseating. Madison posted on social media about her amazing sister who had given up her dream vacation to help family during a difficult time. Extended family members called to praise my generosity and express their admiration for my character. Barbara shared the story with her library colleagues, who apparently expressed amazement at such sibling devotion. Frank told his business associates about having raised a daughter who understood the true meaning of family loyalty. While accepting their praise and gratitude, I secretly intensified my preparation for the real vacation. I coordinated with Jessica about specific dates and activities, ensuring our plans would provide the perfect, adult-oriented getaway I had originally envisioned. We planned wine tours through 3 different vineyards, spa appointments at luxury resorts, hiking expeditions in the Cascade Mountains, and gourmet dining experiences at award-winning restaurants throughout the region. The financial planning required careful maneuvering. I contacted the Four Seasons to transfer the reservation to Madison's name and received confirmation that the deposit would be returned to my account within 5 business days. I used those funds to book my flight to Portland Reserve accommodations at Ashford Manor and prepay for various activities throughout Oregon wine country. The total cost remained almost identical to my original vacation budget, ensuring this alternative trip would deliver equal luxury and relaxation. I developed an elaborate cover story for my supposed staycation. I told my family that since giving up my vacation, I planned to spend the week at home catching up on rest reading books I had been meaning to finish and tackling some apartment organization projects. I mentioned wanting to save money after such a generous gesture and needing time to mentally prepare for increased responsibilities at work following my recent promotion. The emotional preparation proved more challenging than the logistical aspects. I scheduled an emergency therapy session with my counselor to process the complex feelings surrounding my deception plan. She helped me understand that setting boundaries with manipulative family members sometimes requires dramatic gestures, and that protecting my own well-being was not selfish, but necessary for maintaining healthy relationships. I started keeping a journal to document my feelings and motivations, ensuring I could articulate my reasoning when the truth finally emerged. The day of departure arrived with Madison's family pulling into my apartment complex parking lot in 2 packed cars. Tyler and Sophie burst from the back seat, running toward my door with excitement about starting their vacation adventure. Madison looked more relaxed than I had seen her in months, practically glowing with anticipation about the upcoming getaway. Barbara and Frank arrived shortly afterward to help with luggage and provide last-minute parenting advice. The children's enthusiasm about Aunt Ella's vacation becoming their vacation created a bittersweet moment that almost shattered my resolve. Tyler showed me his new swimming trunks and asked detailed questions about the resort pools. Sophie clutched her favorite stuffed dolphin and wondered aloud whether dolphins lived in Arizona deserts. Their innocent excitement reminded me why this manipulation cycle needed to end, not just for my sake, but for their sake too. Barbara spent 30 minutes providing Madison with detailed instructions about photographing specific resort areas and activities to share with me later. She emphasized the importance of sending pictures so I could feel included in the family experience and not regret my generous sacrifice. Frank loaded their luggage while offering practical advice about rental car navigation and resort check-in procedures. Madison hugged me tightly before departing, whispering promises about making this trip meaningful and healing for her family. She swore she would never forget my generosity and would find ways to repay my kindness in the future. Frank shook my hand firmly and reminded me that this decision demonstrated the family values that would serve me well throughout my life. Barbara kissed my cheek and expressed confidence that I would feel good about my choice once I saw how much the vacation helped Madison and the children. As I waved goodbye from my apartment balcony, watching their cars disappear down the street, I felt a mixture of anticipation and nervousness about the deception I was about to execute. I had approximately 6 hours before my own departure, enough time to finalize packing and mentally prepare for the confrontation that would inevitably occur when my family discovered the truth about my real vacation plans. The revelation and execution phase began when Madison called me from the resort that evening, gushing about the beautiful lobby and spacious family suite. She put Tyler and Sophie on the phone to thank Aunt Ella for the amazing vacation, their voices filled with wonder about the swimming pools and game room they had discovered. Madison returned to the phone and promised to start sending pictures the next morning so I could see everything they were experiencing. I waited until the following morning to implement my plan. At exactly 9 a.m., I sent a group text message to Madison, Barbara, and Frank with a simple photo attachment. The image showed my packed suitcase sitting beside my apartment door with my boarding pass clearly visible on top. The message read, "Thank you for enjoying my vacation. I will be enjoying mine in Oregon wine country." My phone exploded with incoming calls within minutes. Madison called first, her voice rising in pitch as she demanded an explanation for what she was seeing. She accused me of playing games and being deliberately confusing, insisting that I had agreed to stay home and rest. When I calmly explained that I had indeed agreed to let her use my Sedona reservation, but had never agreed to abandon vacation plans entirely, she began screaming about manipulation and deception. Barbara called immediately after I hung up on Madison, her librarian calm completely shattered. She demanded to know what I thought I was accomplishing with such juvenile behavior and how I could justify deceiving my family during a crisis. When I explained that I had simply made alternative vacation plans after giving up my original reservation, she accused me of orchestrating an elaborate scheme to make everyone feel guilty and manipulated. Frank's call came as I was loading my car for the drive to the airport. His business-minded approach focused on the practical implications of my deception. He pointed out that Madison was now stuck at a resort that was not particularly child-friendly, while I was apparently escaping to an adults-only vacation that I had planned in secret. He expressed disappointment in my lack of honesty and questioned whether this behavior reflected the values he had tried to teach me. The family chaos reached its peak when I arrived at their resort lobby 30 minutes before my flight departure. Madison was standing near the concierge desk with Tyler and Sophie, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. Barbara and Frank flanked her like protective bodyguards, all three adults staring at me with expressions of betrayal and confusion. Madison launched into a public tirade about my selfishness and manipulation, attracting attention from other resort guests and staff members. She accused me of engineering this entire situation to make her look foolish and ungrateful. She claimed I had deliberately chosen a resort that was inappropriate for her family while secretly planning an adults-only getaway that would make their vacation seem inferior by comparison. Barbara's disappointment cut deeper than Madison's anger. She spoke in low, measured tones about family loyalty and the values she thought she had successfully instilled in both her daughters. She expressed heartbreak over discovering that I could deceive people who loved me and questioned whether she truly knew the person I had become. Her words were designed to cut deep, and they succeeded in creating momentary doubt about my actions. Frank's response was the most devastating because it was the most logical. He explained that while I had technically not lied about anything specific, my deliberate withholding of information constituted a form of manipulation that damaged family trust. He pointed out that Madison was now in an awkward position at a resort that did not suit her family's needs, while I was escaping to a vacation that I had secretly planned without considering the impact on anyone else. My final words before departing were carefully chosen and calmly delivered. I looked at each family member individually and explained that I had learned manipulation from experts, but had decided to use those skills to protect my own well-being rather than to control others. I told Madison that she was welcome to enjoy the vacation I had planned and paid for, and that I hoped it would provide the healing she needed. I told my parents that they had successfully taught me that family comes first, and I had finally decided to make myself part of that family equation. As I walked away from their shocked silence, I felt a lightness in my chest that I had not experienced in years. For the first time in my adult life, I had prioritized my own needs without apologizing or feeling guilty. The 3-hour flight to Portland provided time to process the magnitude of what I had just accomplished and to prepare for the vacation that would exceed my wildest expectations. The Oregon wine country exceeded every expectation I had harbored about the perfect vacation. Ashford Manor, bed and breakfast welcomed me with the kind of adult sophistication that the Four Seasons could never have provided for my specific needs. The property nestled into rolling hills, covered with vineyards, offering panoramic views of distant mountains and immediate access to world-class wineries that specialized in intimate tastings rather than family entertainment. Jessica met me at the Portland airport with genuine excitement about reconnecting after years of limited contact. During the drive to wine country, we caught up on career developments, relationship changes, and personal growth that had occurred since our college friendship. She had evolved into a confident marketing director for a sustainable agriculture nonprofit, and her enthusiasm for Oregon's wine culture was infectious and educational. The bed and breakfast room surpassed the resort suite I had originally booked in Arizona. French doors opened onto a private balcony overlooking endless vineyards, while the interior featured handcrafted furniture, locally sourced artwork, and luxurious amenities that catered specifically to adult guests seeking sophisticated relaxation. The absence of children's voices, family activity schedules, and shared pool areas created an atmosphere of pure tranquility that I had not experienced in years. Our first day included a private wine tasting at 3 boutique vineyards within walking distance of the bed and breakfast. Unlike the commercial wineries that cater to large tour groups, these family-owned establishments offered personalized experiences with winemakers who shared detailed information about their craft, their land, and their philosophy about sustainable agriculture. The conversations were intellectually stimulating and emotionally nourishing in ways that traditional vacation activities never achieved. Jessica and I spent hours on the balcony each evening, drinking local wines and engaging in the kind of deep conversations that had formed our college friendship. We discussed career aspirations, family relationships, personal growth goals, and life philosophies without interruption or judgment. These conversations provided more healing and insight than any spa treatment or meditation session could have offered. Meanwhile, the family fallout continued via text messages and voicemails that I chose to monitor but not immediately answer. Madison's initial messages were angry accusations about the resort being too sophisticated for children and lacking the family-friendly amenities she had expected. Tyler and Sophie were apparently bored by the adult-oriented atmosphere and complained about missing their friends and familiar activities. Barbara's messages evolved from anger to disappointment to grudging recognition that I had technically honored my commitment to provide Madison with a vacation while protecting my own interests. She admitted that the resort was beautiful and luxurious, even if it was not ideally suited for an 8-year-old and 6-year-old who preferred video games to scenic desert views. Frank's business-minded analysis of the situation led to practical observations about vacation planning and family communication. He acknowledged that my original resort choice reflected sophisticated adult preferences that would naturally appeal more to single professionals than to families with young children. He grudgingly admitted that my secret alternative vacation demonstrated impressive planning and financial management skills. The hiking opportunities in the Cascade Mountains provided physical challenges and spiritual renewal that surpassed anything Arizona could have offered. Jessica and I tackled trails that led to hidden waterfalls, mountain lakes, and panoramic vistas that took our breath away. The physical exertion, combined with natural beauty, created a meditative state that allowed me to process the family drama with clarity and perspective. The cooking classes we attended at a local culinary school taught skills that I would use for years while providing immediate satisfaction and accomplishment. Working with locally sourced ingredients and learning techniques from professional chefs created a sense of personal growth and cultural enrichment that passive resort activities never could have provided. By the 4th day, my family's messages began to shift in tone. Madison acknowledged that the resort was indeed beautiful and luxurious, even if it required more creativity to keep children entertained than she had anticipated. She admitted that the spa services were world-class and that she was getting the relaxation and pampering she desperately needed, even if the experience was different than she had originally envisioned. Barbara called to have an actual conversation rather than leaving accusatory voicemails. She expressed confusion about my methods, but recognition that I had managed to provide Madison with an excellent vacation while ensuring my own needs were met. She asked detailed questions about my Oregon experience and seemed genuinely interested in understanding my perspective on the family dynamics that had led to this elaborate deception. Frank's final message was characteristically direct and surprisingly respectful. He acknowledged that while my communication style had been deceptive, my problem-solving approach had been effective and fair. Everyone had gotten what they needed, even if the process had been more complex than anyone had anticipated. He expressed grudging admiration for my strategic thinking and follow-through on a difficult family situation. The wine tastings, gourmet meals, mountain hikes, and intimate conversations with Jessica provided exactly the rejuvenation and perspective I had been seeking. More importantly, the successful execution of my boundary-setting plan created a new sense of personal empowerment that would influence every family interaction in the future. I had proven to myself and my family that I was capable of protecting my own interests while still meeting family obligations. Returning home after my Oregon vacation felt like entering a different family dynamic than the one I had left behind. The airport pickup conversation with Frank was awkwardly respectful rather than warmly welcoming, but it lacked the guilt trips and manipulation tactics that had characterized our relationship for years. He asked genuine questions about my vacation experiences and listened to my answers without immediately redirecting the conversation toward Madison's needs or family obligations. Madison's return from Sedona had apparently included similar shifts in perspective. According to Barbara, the resort experience had been more sophisticated and adult-oriented than Madison had anticipated, forcing her to engage with activities and amenities that stretched her comfort zone in beneficial ways. The spa treatments had provided genuine relaxation and stress relief, while the desert hiking had offered physical challenges that built confidence and strength. More significantly, managing the vacation logistics independently had reminded Madison of her capabilities as a single parent and functioning adult. Without family members to handle details and solve problems, she had been forced to navigate resort services, coordinate children's activities, and make decisions without consultation or approval. The experience had been empowering rather than overwhelming, rebuilding self-confidence that had been eroded during the custody battle stress. Tyler and Sophie had adapted to the resort environment more successfully than their mother had initially believed possible. While they had complained about missing familiar entertainment options, they had discovered new interests in desert wildlife swimming and interacting with other families from different parts of the country. The experience had broadened their perspectives and demonstrated their resilience in unfamiliar situations. The extended family's reaction to my boundary-setting experiment was mixed but ultimately respectful. Cousins and aunts who had participated in the initial pressure campaign seemed impressed by my strategic thinking and successful execution. Some admitted they had always wondered whether I would eventually stand up for myself in dramatic fashion, and my vacation deception had exceeded their expectations for creative problem solving. Barbara's adjustment to the new family dynamic required the most time and introspection. As the primary architect of Madison's preferential treatment, she struggled to understand how her well-intentioned family management had created resentment and manipulation rather than harmony and support. Our post-vacation conversations involved difficult discussions about favoritism, expectations, and the difference between supporting family members and enabling unhealthy dependence. Frank's business-oriented mind appreciated the effectiveness of my approach, even while questioning the necessity of such elaborate deception. He began recognizing patterns in our family interactions that had systematically prioritized Madison's immediate needs over long-term relationship health. Our weekly dinner conversations shifted toward more balanced topics and equal attention to both daughters' experiences and perspectives. The most significant change occurred in Madison's approach to family requests and crisis management. Having successfully navigated an unfamiliar vacation environment independently, she gained confidence in her ability to handle challenges without immediately turning to family members for solutions and support. Her subsequent requests for help became more specific and reciprocal rather than general expectations of sacrifice from others. My career benefited unexpectedly from the confidence and clarity gained during this family confrontation. The strategic thinking and assertive communication skills required to execute my vacation plan translated directly into workplace situations that demanded similar boundary setting and creative problem solving. My promotion responsibilities expanded to include project management roles that required exactly these types of skills. The legal custody battle that had triggered this entire family crisis resolved more favorably than Madison had anticipated. The evidence of strong family support and enriching experiences for the children, including the Sedona vacation, helped demonstrate her capabilities as a stable and loving parent. Derek's petition for full custody was denied, and the existing custody arrangement remained unchanged with minor modifications that actually increased Madison's parenting time. 6 months later, our family relationships had stabilized into healthier patterns based on mutual respect rather than guilt and obligation. Madison's requests for support became reasonable and reciprocal, often including offers to help with my needs and goals in return for assistance with her challenges. Barbara and Frank learned to ask rather than expect, creating space for honest responses that strengthened rather than strained our connections. The lesson I learned about self-respect and boundary setting extended far beyond family relationships into friendships, work situations, and romantic relationships. Protecting my own needs and interests did not require hurting others or being selfish, but it did require clear communication and consistent follow-through on stated boundaries. Love expressed through sacrifice is not sustainable, but love expressed through mutual respect creates lasting bonds. The wisdom gained from this experience taught me that being understanding and accommodating had been confused with being spineless and manipulable. True family support involves helping others grow stronger and more independent, not enabling dependence and entitlement that prevents personal growth. The healthiest family relationships balance individual needs with collective well-being. My understanding of love and family evolved to recognize that caring for others must include caring for myself in order to remain sustainable and authentic. When family members truly love and respect each other, they want everyone to thrive and succeed rather than expecting some members to consistently sacrifice for others. Healthy families celebrate individual achievements and support personal boundaries rather than pressuring conformity and self-sacrifice. The most profound realization was that teaching people how to treat you requires actions rather than words. Years of explaining, pleading, and requesting respectful treatment had accomplished nothing, while one dramatic demonstration of self-advocacy had immediately shifted family dynamics. Sometimes the people who love us need to experience consequences in order to recognize patterns that have become invisible through familiarity and habit. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give your family is teaching them that you matter too. And sometimes that lesson comes wrapped in a very unexpected package. What would you have done in my situation? Have you ever had to set dramatic boundaries with family members who took your generosity for granted? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and do not forget to hit that like button if this story resonated with your own family experiences. Subscribe for more stories about finding your voice and standing up for yourself in challenging family situations. Share this video with anyone who needs encouragement to prioritize their own well-being alongside caring for others. Thank you for watching, and remember that setting boundaries is not selfish, but necessary for maintaining healthy relationships that allow everyone to thrive. I hope this story inspires you to value yourself as much as you value the people you love.